29 people. I love it. Man, I was about to say, let's give everybody a chance to come into the room, but I appreciate everybody for being here before us. You met us here. Once again, welcome to all 50 of you. Welcome to Your Inner Circle presents Under Development. My name is Shell Bermel, and once again, this is Your Inner Circle. So if you've been following us for the balance of 2020, this is the last one for this year. But if you've been following us, we've been talking about professional development, spiritual development. We've had authors, we've had entrepreneurs, we have first-time homeowners. So we've covered a variety of topics over the course of this year. And I just thank you all for joining us. We have three esteemed panelists. I'm going to introduce them, or I'm going to let them introduce themselves here shortly, but really quick. What is Your Inner Circle? Your Inner Circle is lessons in your living room, plain and simple. We want to take the information that we would typically have or possibly have amongst our friend groups or our peer groups or our professional groups, and we just want to bring them to you. Because what I found in my travels is that this information you don't have to pay for it. Most of the information I've acquired about my career and about my job wasn't in a traditional setting. It was in an informal setting. Not on webinars, this Zoom, and this is kind of different, but it was in informal settings around dining room tables, at bars, at dinner, at lunch. We were just having conversations, and I would pick up these gems. So that's Your Inner Circle. So we're taking that concept and we're bringing it to your living room through these meetings. So I'm going to introduce my panelists. I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves. Three amazing panelists. We have Brittney, we have Kneisha Sanders, we have Al Jones, and I'm going to start with Ish. How about you? Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hey everyone, so Kneisha Sanders, and since we're in the inner circle, you guys can call me Isha or Ish. So I am an executive coach, and that is a passion field that I went off and started my own company, Resolution Coaching, to do specifically, coaching, professional and leadership development coaching for early career executives, mid-level managers, and really just helping them, kind of see what they can't see, right? The sharpest knife can't see their own handle. And so that's part of what that looks like. But from a background perspective, I am finance. So I attended Michigan State University, got my bachelor's degree in finance. Went off to GE, spent most of my career there, over 7.5 years there, and then moved on to Cisco. And through that journey, which I'm sure we'll get into, there was a lot of highs and lows, and a lot of professional development and coaching helped me. And so, I hope that I can drop some gems for you guys tonight to help you as well.
All right. Thank you, Ish. Appreciate you. How about Brittney? Let's go with Brittney.
Hello. So I'm Brittney Rimmer. I'm a senior account executive for Reliance One. We're a technical staffing agency headquartered in Auburn Hills. As far as my background, I'm one of those people that was an accidental salesperson. My degree is in biology. I originally wanted to go to pharmacy school. So after I got my degree, did my internship, realized it was not the route that I wanted to go. I do feel like I found my passion when it comes to staffing and, helping people find their place in their careers and not wasting a ton of money like I did. So I'm looking forward to sharing all of the knowledge that I have. And thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for joining the circle. And last but not least, and I want to come back to that biology, to where you are now. That's interesting. But last but not least, Mr. Jones, how about you?
What's going on, family? Alan Jones, born and raised Detroit, Michigan. I go by Al. I am currently the Associate Director for the Office of Residence Life here at Central Michigan University. I actually did my undergrad at Central Michigan. I did my grad work at Wisconsin Whitewater. And from there, I started my career in higher education at the University of Kansas. I started my undergrad as a finance major, actually. Then I took the weed out class and I got weeded out. Failed business calc. Then when I got to 2 years, my third year, I went to an academic advisor and they was like, well, how do I graduate, right? So they looked at my schedule, ended up seeing that I enjoyed the psychology classes, got my undergrad in psychology, and then had to find a master's. So I didn't think I'd be in education. I always knew I would go into sales, and I looked up one day and I'm still here.
Still here. Look at this, man. Look at this. I failed business calc twice. Full disclosure, business calc was a very, very difficult class, but I kind of persevered through it. But I went to school for marketing, and I'm working in trucking, so that's life. That's life. But man, I am so excited and ecstatic that we have 66 people and counting in our audience. So please, this is my note for the audience. Couple housekeeping things. We have a poll. And the poll right now is, where are you from? So if you look, I'm not sure if you're on your cell phone or if you're on the computer, but there's a poll. Go ahead and fill out that poll for us. Where are you from? And then we also have a chat function. As we go through the panel, I'll ask my panelists different questions, and we'll have a conversation. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free. I actually need you to put it in the chat box, because I'm not sure if I have enough questions to last the balance of this hour and 15 minutes. So please ask your questions, whatever you want answered by your panelists. We would try to get to all of those questions. So housekeeping, that's that. My first question for the panelists. I think we talked about it a little bit, but let's dive a little bit deeper. What was your first professional job, whether that was in college or out of college, but what was your first professional job? And what did you learn from that position? And I'm going to start with Brittney, because I'm interested in the biology. I really want to know now. I'm curious.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess my first professional job was my internship as a pharmacy tech once I graduated. And I realized that I liked interacting with people more than the pharmacist. I mean, when you typically go to a pharmacy, you see the pharmacist, they're standing behind a computer, they're just signing their name off, or they're ducked off in a department in a hospital. And I'm like, this is boring. It's very, very boring. Like, I love the tech work, but unfortunately the techs don't get paid as much. So I was having a conversation with a friend of the family. He was in pharmaceutical sales. And so he's like, you should look into this. You got the personality for it. You have, somewhat of the background knowledge of some of these drugs. You should look into it. So never had any sales experience before outside of, retail. So I got into life insurance sales. That was kind of like the quick, easy sales job, So I got into life insurance sales, and I did that for about a year and a half. Unfortunately, the scheduling didn't work with me having a young son. So put my resume back out there, and I was picked up by a staffing agency for a recruiter.
Okay.
So, and when you think about it, recruiters are in sales in a way. We're out here trying to sell a position or to get someone from, their current job to, be interested in the role that you're recruiting for. So started off there, did that for about a year. Now I am in a sales role. So I mostly work with hiring managers and HR professionals to help them fill the positions that they're looking to fill. So
love it.
That's kind of how I got here.
Perfect. Love it. We're definitely come back. So I want to pick your brain about some of the hiring questions. I'm sure our audience is going to have some questions as well. Al Jones, how about you? What was your first professional role?
Yeah, first job, fresh out of grad school, was a complex director at the University of Kansas. So that's working in residence life, student housing. Yeah, like I said, I never thought I would go into education. I got my master's in Wisconsin Whitewater, and I had to have an assistantship. That assistantship happened to be in residence life. And I was like, I'm decent at this, right? Like, just kind of got into a groove. It paid for my master's. So I just kind of said, if I'm good at it, why not? So I kind of stuck with it. And then, I saw the job at Kansas. It paid pretty well. Never thought I'd be in the state of Kansas. But you know what? It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. Taking a leap of faith and trying something different definitely paid off for me. Biggest takeaway, right? I learned so much. It's your first job. You have mistakes, you have wins, losses, in betweens. The school itself, being the type of school it is, I was able to start understanding and learning the political landscape. So I now, when I walk onto a campus or into a department, I'm able to kind of read the room more strategically, right? So that's probably the biggest takeaway from Kansas.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Ish, last but not least.
Yeah, so the first job, so I feel like I had a whole lot of jobs, but the first one I'll count is my one right out of undergrad, which was at GE through their financial management program, which was a leadership development program. And if I'm honest, I think it was a real tough program, and not necessarily because I felt like I wasn't smart enough to be in it, because they only recruit people who it's a very rigorous process. So it wasn't coming in, I didn't feel like I wasn't smart, because it was like, the way they structure the program is like, you are the cream of the crop, right? Okay, great. Well, I completely bombed this program. Like, it was like the worst. Like, I just wasn't a good fit, and I really hated it. And it was like, okay, what am I going to do now? Because a lot of people's like, well, if you get on this program, you can't quit. You gotta stick it out. And I had a come to Jesus moment, and I actually ended up leaving the program. And I would say it was really the start and the kickoff of my career journey. And also like just my connection spiritually to how career and God plays together. But the biggest takeaway was that failure is an event and not a person. And so that's carried through my entire career. So
love it. So you mentioned that when you switch, or when that program, what feelings were you feeling when you made that switch? Did you initially did you know that I'm going to do something else, or did you have to work through that process?
Yeah, I had to work through the process, because you're fresh out of undergrad and starting a big company, especially I'm from Detroit, and so a lot of the things that you like when you go to school, right? When you go to undergrad, they're always trying to protect you, right? It's like, oh, you have the multicultural business college, right? You have this small pool, and so when you think about your network, you're always kind of like in a bubble, right? And so part of me coming out, I had to come out of that bubble. Honestly, the program, making a decision to whether to stay or to leave, was busting my bubble. And so it required me to have conversations with people, tough conversations with people around why I felt like I didn't want to do it, or how can I do something differently. And honestly, after making the initial decision to say, no, I'm going to walk away from this, it was a mentor that really kept me to say no, I think you should give it one more try. Here's a job, try this. And so I think, I'm sure we'll get into it, but a part of it was I didn't know what I wanted to do next. And that was kind of the first real time that I felt like I had failed at a job. And although I wasn't on a performance improvement plan or anything like that, it was, still being a high achiever. You're like, oh man, I just failed. I'm a failure, right? What does this look like? And so I think that, when you're in a position like that, sometimes it's hard to figure out what you should do next. And sometimes you just need a mentor or a sponsor to just step in and be like, hey, look, here, let me help, And so that, I would say, was that helped. And then from there, my journey kind of took me to allow for me to figure out really what I wanted to do, which ended up being coaching. But I think it was the mentor that really kind of helped that.
Perfect. While we're here, we have questions starting to come into the chat, but Ish, I want to touch on something that you just said. Brittney or Al, did any of you have a mentor guiding you through your career? Al, I see an emphatic yes, head shake.
Yes, definitely.
You don't have to say who they were, but or if you want to give them a shout out, would you like to speak to what they did for your career?
Well, I can start. I would say my mentor or sponsor basically put me in the room. It was someone, he wasn't my direct report, but he was familiar with my work.
Okay.
And he had a level of influence where, that would bring my name up when it was called to who to promote or who to put on this project. So I think it's very important in your career, especially if you want to move up, to have, a mentor or sponsor. Like I said, they don't have to be your direct manager, but someone, who will put your name in the room.
Yeah, love it.
and this is not advice. This is my lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
I probably have around 10 to 12 people I consider mentors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, coming up through student affairs, there's just so many different avenues and so many organizations and so many, right? Like there's people everywhere. And anytime I go somewhere, I just make it a point of pride to try to connect with somebody and see what I can gain from them or what I can offer them. So it's been vital though in my career and success.
Awesome. Where do I find a mentor? How do you just walk up to them and say, hey, will you be my mentor? Is it that simple?
It can be.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've done that.
Yeah,
I met someone at a networking event and shot him a LinkedIn message right after, like, hey, we connected.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I mean, honestly, so, you know, sometimes it is cultural, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we're in the inner circle, so we can be real with one another.
Right.
Yeah.
But honestly, you know, so the mentor that I'm talking about, like, I literally was walking in the room and it was a round table, and there were about 20 of us who was on a program who was engaging in the round table, and the leader, who was the senior executive, was a Black guy, and I was the only Black girl in the room. And so literally I sat down and he just like leaned over and was like, hey, make sure you reach out. And funny thing is I didn't, because, you know, fresh out of school, I was nervous. I'm like, I'm not about to reach out to this guy with this big title. And ironically enough, right when I was thinking about doing it, he had already reached out to me and, you know, put a meeting on my calendar. And so sometimes, you know, I think it goes back to that idea too of like, you know, reach one, right? Right. So making sure that you in your professional career, that you're that person as well who, you know, don't get caught up in your title, but you're willing to see someone in the room that reminds you of when you started, whether they're the same race or not, and say, hey, like, reach out. And if they don't, you still follow up with them and reach out to them, because that mentor is someone who was critical in my career progression and someone that I keep in touch with now to this day. So I would say, you know, yeah, be present, be visible, and don't be afraid to reach out due to a title.
Love it. Would anybody else like to add to that? Any of our panelists?
Are you going to come back to mentorship?
Possibly. We have some questions about mentorship in the panel. Anything you'd like to add?
I'll let it ride. Go for it.
Okay, cool. Ish, you are somebody's new mentor in the chat. You are Marcus's new mentor. Now that's done. All right.
Yep.
So let's go to the first question from the chat. How can I stand out when starting in a brand new role? So that's kind of what we've been speaking about. So how can I start out when starting in a brand new role? I'll start with Al Jones.
Okay. If you can I combine those two questions? Because I think
yes, please.
Okay.
You can do whatever you want.
I appreciate it. In the chat, somebody asked, what did I mean when I said strategically reading the room? So to me, I think those go hand in hand. It essentially goes back to when you get somewhere new of taking time and learning the environment, right? So when I say read the room, we know majority of the time in any organization, the person with the biggest title is not the person people look to as the leader, right? So what does it mean to find that person? What does it mean to actually look at what the job is or whatever your organization's goal, like whatever industry you're working in, figure out where the gaps are and how do your strengths lead to filling those gaps, right? What does it mean to understand your supervisor's priorities, to understand how to make those your priorities? What does it mean to understand who's connected to who? So when I say reading the room, those are the things that I think are so important when you get somewhere new. So when you talk about standing out in a new job, it's finding your value. What can you bring to the team that right now is not being brought? And how do you make yourself... This next piece of advice I don't follow anymore, right? But as an engineering professional, I will say it aided me big time. Just volunteer and try stuff. How do you make yourself known? How do you have people saying your name in conversation? Stan Shingles, who works here at Central Michigan, always said, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's about who knows you and what they say when you're not in the room. I have held on to that since I've been in college and ran with it because it's proved very true.
Al, Stan gave me that same piece of advice. I actually interned for Stan when I was at Central, and that same piece of advice, and it stuck with me. It really, really did stick with me. Thank you for that. That was an excellent answer. Any of our other panelists, each, would you like to add to that?
I mean, I feel like that was said well, so I don't want to mess it up. I want to add nothing to that. Just let that sit there.
Awesome. Brittney, how about you?
Same. Right there.
Right, you just gotta let that land.
You don't have to drop any more mics. You don't have to drop any more mics here. I appreciate that. That was definitely a great answer. You gotta find those gaps and learn how to fill them. Perfect. Another question in the chat regarding your mentors. Did you seek them out or did they take interest in you? And I think each you said it was a little bit of both, right?
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. And I mean, I think, now this is like more of like a professional perspective, but there's different types of mentors, so like, when you come into, I'm speaking from the context of corporate America, but when you come into corporate, they have a formal, mentorship program that's set up. And that's where they'll, anonymously say, hey, this person matched with that person. You guys meet, see whether or not it's a good fit. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And there is that's good for certain things, right? So when we were talking about, having people in the room who knows you, those are the type of mentors they're going to match you with, right? Executives, people who can speak on your behalf. But then there's a couple other mentors that you need in your corner. One being your peer, like you need peer mentorships. So I'll give you an example. So when I first started in that program, right, as an early career, this was my first time coming into corporate America. And if I'm honest, right, the first in my family to really work for a Fortune 10 company. And so it was, okay, well, I don't know the ropes. I haven't seen this. I haven't been in this program. And so there was someone who was who was in the program, who was just a year older than I, who, the program was a 2-year program. So they were in the second year and I was in the first year. Well, that person served as a mentor to really show me the ropes, to teach me the internal politics of the program so that I wouldn't fall into, the trap of just showing up to a meeting incorrect. And so that was stuff that I couldn't talk to my manager about, but it was great to have someone, on the side to be like, hey, whisper in my ear, like, this is what's proper, this is what's not, based on the rules of engagement of this program. So I would say, make sure you have a peer mentor. And then also you do need the manager, the executive level formal mentor, so that they can, again, speak in rooms that you're not a part of, so that, people can know your name and that they can promote your work. And then I guess another piece is, right, like when you're thinking about mentorship, I guess don't overthink it. It's about relationships. It's about building rapport with people who can know, like, and trust you. And so, as you're thinking about doing mentorship, you kind of want it to happen organically so that it won't just show up as you're the person who's only speaking to titles, right? Like, like if you're walking in a hallway, your hallway reputation needs to match your mentorship. So like if you're not willing to speak to the janitor, then don't be willing to speak to the senior executive, right? Like you have to make sure that there's consistency in how you show up and that you develop character that people can speak to. Because not only the executive, like the people who you work with, they serve as mentors too. So don't forget about the hallway reputation and making sure that you're not one way to a certain type of person, but you're consistent in how you show up.
Love it. The hallway reputation. I've heard that before, but I haven't heard it said that way before. I love it. People say, treat the janitor the same that you would treat the CEO. I like to look at it from the other way. Treat the CEO the same way that you would treat the janitor. Where is this difference coming from, right? And if you're treating people as people, there shouldn't be this difference in the first place. Al or Brittney, would you like to add anything to that?
No, she pretty much touched on what I was going to say is, making sure that it's organic, and that it is a relationship. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have this list of things to talk about when you meet with them, or just a conversation in a relationship.
Yeah, that's it. Al, how about you?
No, I did. That was too perfect. I do want to talk about from a different perspective, though. People who take you on as a mentee who you didn't ask for.
Let's go.
Yes.
That's hard. There is some of that.
I've had that. Especially as you're climbing and you're showing yourself to be successful, and then somebody else wants to come in. It feels like they just want to latch on, in its own way. So I just want to say, be wary of that, right? Like, don't get me wrong. If somebody's willing to help, you should definitely look into it and take the help. but be mindful of the people who want to put you under their tree to use your success as their success. Because I've seen that happen a couple times now.
Look, man, light serves a couple purposes. It illuminates and it shows where you're supposed to go, but it also attracts flies. So you have to be wary of that. That's a great conversation. So my next question: I've been in my job for a while and I'm ready for the next level. What steps do I need to take to get promoted? And I think this will kind of go with our hallway reputation. What steps should I take to get promoted? Ish, how about you?
Yeah, so steps on promotion. So, I mean, I think first is, so I'll start where I started, which was making a decision. You know, I think that you got to make the decision on whether or not you're going to choose the system or if you're going to choose yourself. And what I mean by that is system being the fact that, like we just talked about it, like the internal politics, right? So there is rules, like they're unspoken, but there are rules to how you get promoted, right? So yes, there's the poster that says the values. Yes, we value inclusiveness. We value, teamwork. Like that's on the poster. But when you talk about who's actually getting promoted, those are the real values that you have to be aware of. And so that I'm calling the system. And so there is a way, right? Like in my case, right, there was, you start this leadership development program, you graduate, you go to the next leadership development program, and then now you're on fast track to executive. Okay, great. You're doing the corporate ladder. Then you have yourself, where it's like, look, I'm not going to compromise my values to get to the next level. I'm not going to fit into this box so that I can get ahead faster, but I'm going to, I'm willing to do it my way, and that's true to me, and then go up the corporate ladder. So I say that because I had a manager who told me in that moment, like, hey, look, Kneisha, you got to make a choice, and depending on your choice is going to determine your circumstance and how fast you move up. Well, I ended up, because you guys, I just shared with you, I quit that program. So I ended up choosing myself and my own values and not trying to fit into the mold. And what came with that was a lot of hard work, a lot of, conversations. And I don't like to use the word networking, but we'll use it for now. But really getting to know people outside of my immediate environment, right? So I had to be uncomfortable and have conversations that, people felt that I wasn't worthy to have, right? And being in rooms that I wasn't supposed to be in, but it took a level of a consistency and a level of confidence in a sense to say, look, I am not, what I used to be, right? So not allowing your past to define your future. So I would say when you're thinking about being promoted, first make the decision on whether or not you're going to follow the system or you're going to follow yourself. And when you do that, stick with it, be consistent, meet people to not just get from them, but meet people to help, right? To serve. Because when you start having, when you start doing people favors and when you start being helpful, people will start tapping you on the shoulders for opportunities that they feel would be worth your while. So I think it's just about being present, getting to know your organization and really understanding, where do you want to go? Whether, it doesn't matter what vehicle you take, but getting some vision around why you want that next position. And in that, once you decide what that next position should be, understanding who you need to talk to and understand what it would look like to take on that position. So yeah, I guess that's probably the way I kind of did it. And you actually move up faster than you think, right? Like I think sometimes people get caught up in, I was in this role for 3 years, or but like just stick with it and just keep hitting the nail.
Good. Al Jones, how about you?
Context matters, right? So the organization you work for and how you engage in it is tough to give broad general answer on that. But what I will say is back to reading the room, learn the organization, understand what you can bring to the team. As has been said on here, relationships matter so much, right? Like your supervisor, people in the supervisor capacity will be your biggest advocates because they're the ones who's talking about your work. They're the ones explaining your value. They're the ones explaining what you bring to the table. For me, it was this is family talk, so I'll just be very honest. So I tell graduate students as they move into residence life and student affairs, make yourself so valuable to the department you can't be fired. What does that mean? That means you need to figure out what the department values. So even back to the, like Isha's statement, choose self or system. I'm the kind of person who chose system, right? Like I have found comfort in this idea of working along this system to change and impact students' lives. This is where I find enjoyment. So I make sure to tell specifically young students of color, make yourself so valuable that you can't be fired. And that looks different in different organizations and different businesses, but that's the mentality and the mindset. What can you bring and how do you leverage that?
Love it. Love it. Brittney, anything you would like to add?
I'll just say, like Isha said, don't get in line, and to both of their points with Al too, because I followed the system as well. So, having those conversations, knowing what is needed to get promoted and, how you get there and what you can change and bringing that value to the table. So.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just one point I want to reiterate that Al said around value. And I think, one of the advice that I always would get was, making sure that you make your manager jobs easier, right? Mm-hmm. Like your manager shouldn't have to feel like they're working. And so when you're taking things off your manager's plate, that's adding value. And, right now we're in an environment where job security isn't promising. Like it's not as secure. It's not secure at all, right? And so, the way to not be concerned about a cutoff and, being laid off or fired is to make sure that people understand the work that you do and bring to the table. And so if you're continuously helping your manager and the department out in a way that they're not gonna fire you because they need someone there to do the work, right? So make sure, so when Al said make your value known, make sure that you are adding value to the team. And again, that also may look like, the conversations that you have, right? Like, are you, bringing conflict to the team? Are you the one solving it, right? So really understanding the role that you play and how sometimes your complaints, like what way are your complaints? Like, are your complaints serving the team or is it taken away from the team? I think will be another ticker to see whether or not you're actually adding value and showing up properly.
Love it. This is a great conversation. So I want to pause very quickly just to take a gander at the poll. And the question in the poll was, what was your first job or where was your first job? And the top it's actually a tie now. It's a tie between in my field and not even related. So 38% said in my field and another 38% said not even related. 23% said entry level and 0 said still looking. So nobody's still looking for a career, and that is amazing. Thank God. Blessings. That's amazing. Nobody's still looking. But in my field, not even related, just took the lead. So not even related looks like it may win. And going back to the chat, we had a question and looks like it was from Vance. But before I read that, I just want to continue from the previous question. I've had 7 different positions in 9 years in my organization. And I think I've done I think I've chosen self at times, and I think I've chosen system at times. But you have to know, like Al said, it's about reading the room. It's about context, what's going on in this situation. But for me, it was really about putting myself in positions where I would get myself noticed, not seeking and not seeking to say like, hey, look at me, everybody look at me. But by doing the right work, that's ultimately going to get yourself noticed, and being intentional about taking those travel roles or roles outside of your department, interdepartmental work, going on different teams, volunteering for projects, raising your hands to say, yeah, I'll do it. Just different ways to get yourself noticed within the system where it doesn't feel like you're trying to jump and bypass everyone. So I just wanted to add that. And I'll ask Vance's question. How do you walk the line between taking advantage of and taking on opportunities for growth? So I think that's kind of a segue from what I just said about volunteering for things. But how do you walk that fine line? Because people, when you're known for doing the right thing and when you're known for doing good, people will just pull you. They'll want to do it, even in organizational life. So how do you walk that line and not be taken advantage of? And Al, I feel like this would be a good question for you because I feel like that might happen in the university setting, especially when you're charismatic, you have a nice smile like you.
Yeah, thank you. It's education, man. Of course we get overworked and underpaid.
Exactly.
I laughed when I read the question because it's a tough question to answer. It is. It's a very tough question to answer. It's I think balance, right? What situation are you in, and what do you need the extra opportunities for? And that's why I said I don't follow my own advice anymore as entry level. I did everything. I'm talking about everything from the midnight breakfast to we need somebody to judge this, host this. We need somebody to keep score for this. I did it all, right? To ingrain myself in the organization and in the school. But now I'm good, right? Like I'm at a place now where I'm becoming a little more comfortable. Don't get me wrong. I'm not where I want to be at the end of all this at all. But I'm now in a situation where that's not the strategy I need to be successful. So I think it's you need to take the opportunities and extra work until that's no longer what you need to leverage your own success. And it's kind of like it's a spectrum, right? Like you're going to move. It's not stagnant. Mm-hmm. So depending on the day, maybe this is the year you should take up a little extra. That next year, it's like, well, no, you put in a lot of work last year. People realize that. Ride the wave for a little bit. So there is no concrete answer, and it changes, but it's all about balance.
Love it. Brittney, would you like to add anything? I see you.
No, yeah, I was agreeing. No, it definitely is a balance. It's like I said, it's a hard question to really answer. How do you find that fine line? But like you said, do what you need to get where you're trying to go. But then, don't burn yourself out either.
Yeah, love it. Ish, how about you?
I'd say punt. No. Yeah, so if punt doesn't work, I think, just be conscious of the compliment of being a hard worker. Because sometimes people they be like, oh, I know Al will do it, so I'm gonna give it all to him. He's a hard worker. And that can actually be a derailer to your career progression because, sometimes your manager may not want to give opportunities or share opportunities because they don't want to lose you in a position that you're in. Mm-hmm. And so, we're talking about adding value. We're talking about, taking the tough assignments or running towards the fire. But also be mindful of if you're trying to get promoted, that you have to make sure that your work is hand-offable, right? Like, I know I just made that up, but that word up, but really that's what it is. Like, you have to make sure that you're able to keep people with an eye or an idea that you're here for now, but you're moving forward. And so engage people into that process, right? Help them understand that this is an opportunity and that you're growing from this and in this, and not that you're just a hard worker who is just going to do whatever people tell you to do. So I think just make sure you differentiate that.
Love it, love it, love it. All right. So there's another question in the poll. Are you in the career that you think you will stay in? Are you in the career that you think you will stay in? So the answers are yes, no, and adjacent. So go ahead to the poll and go ahead and check that out. And we will jump back into the questions. And Brittney, I have a question for you specifically, but I want the rest of my panelists to chime in. I think I have a lot of experience and I'm looking for a new role. Okay. Does my resume really have to be the one page? Is that a thing?
No, it does not. That has been the change in recent years. We're far away from the days where you're walking into, a corporation or a place with your resume in hand and they're able to meet you. How can they really see your experience? Now everything you're applying online. So most of the times your resume is going into a black hole. And unless you have the keywords in that resume that they're going to pull out, your resume will probably not be seen. So I would definitely say tailor your resume to the job that you're applying for. If you don't want to just use a standard resume or even adding a cover letter, those are still very valuable with explaining your experience as well as your soft skills. But it definitely, one page is not enough anymore, especially depending on like the leadership positions or, management, mid-level management roles.
I love it. No, thank you for that. And one more question. You said something. I hate cover letters. I really. Is it and I know you said add it, so I'm going to take your word for it. Do people really read cover letters?
They do, or they utilize us staffing agency
okay, got it.
for you. we're speaking on your behalf. But no, I think it's great for, like I said, to show those soft skills and, kind of really speak to situations, that you have experience with.
Love it, love it, love it.
I actually have a question for Brittney.
Yeah. Okay.
So with the one-pager, resume, because honestly, I've grown up on that, right? Like, and it's like after maybe 10 years of experience, you can add a second page, maybe. So is there a timeline to when you should have a one-pager versus a two-pager, or a certain level of experience that you should have before you can justify having two-page resumes?
It's a good question. I would say anywhere from like the 5+ years, depending on your experience, where you can kind of go into, more of a two-pager. If you're entry level, there's really no need for a two-pager. You don't have to put, you working in a retail or,
every job you had.
Put the internship that has applicable skills for the position, definitely add that. But I would say, after that 5+ years, you can start to expand your resume. And then I would say anything over 15 years, you can leave off if you're there.
Okay.
So, some of us aren't there yet, but, if you're there, if it goes, some of that stuff you can kind of leave off, especially if you're like in a management position now. We don't need to know, your entry level positions and how you got here. You can kind of speak on that in the interview, but what they're really looking for should be, within the last 10 years.
And one other thing that you mentioned, the keywords. How do I know which keywords to put in my resume? Where is there a list? Where do I find those?
Usually in the list of requirements. I would say go through the responsibilities and the requirements for the position, and you can kind of tell what aligns with what they're really looking for. The manager, the job duties will kind of be, this broad, vague responsibility of the position. But when you get down into the requirements and what they're really looking for, those are like your keywords. So for me, I recruit a lot for engineers, right? So different softwares that they utilize, different, when it comes to like design, product development experience, if they want them to have experience with a certain commodity or parts of the vehicle, those sorts of things that you want to make sure that you have in your resume.
Love it, love it, love it. I have one more questions about resume. So I know a lot of people are doing maybe not a lot of people, but I think resumes are starting to become a niche for people. How important is a beautifully formatted resume? Like I see a lot of beautiful, beautiful resumes. I'm like, that's really nice.
It's important, but you don't want to overcomplicate it.
Okay.
Like, some of these resumes where you got your picture on there, you got all these different fonts, like no. The manager does not have time to look through all of that. They really want a clear cut of what you're experiencing. So in lieu of a cover letter, you can do like a quick summary at the top of your resume if you don't want to do a full cover letter where you just kind of bullet point your experience. But you want to make sure that it's in chronological order. It follows the same format, that your resume follows the same format all the way through.
Okay. Love that. Love that. Kneisha or Ish or Al, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think Brittney
resume standpoint. Okay. Thank you. So some of the technical aspects, and I know I hear that all the time, and sometimes I just say it depends, but thank you for that clarification, because I see a lot of beautiful resumes, but I also see some longer resumes. But I guess one thing, when I'm looking through resumes, sometimes I see long resumes and I'm like, this could have been on one page. So use that space, use that formatting. But great. All right. So my next question, and I'm just gonna throw it out there. How do I ask for more money? Like I want to raise. So how do I ask for more money? So I'm gonna throw, who wants it? I'm just gonna throw it out there.
I just say ask for it. You don't get what you don't ask for. So, I would say ask for it within reason. Have your reasons for, why you're looking for a raise. Come prepared, whether it's your portfolio, what you've done, what value you've added to the organization over the years. But
yep.
Yeah. And I probably will echo the whole come prepared perspective, because I mean, there's only one of two ways you can get more money, right? You get a promotion where you're willing to apply for the next level job, or you get an enroll promotion where you don't move, your title probably doesn't change, but you get a salary increase. And I think, you got to be honest with yourself around like the above and beyond work that you're doing. So like, think about, it from the job's perspective. So what are the competencies in the current role that you're in that they tell you to have, right? So what's going to be on your performance review? And then, talk about the things that you are actually doing, right? So like, okay, this is what my job description says. Here are the competencies that I'm supposed to be developing just because I have this role. Here's what I'm actually doing. Like, here's the work that I'm actually doing. Here's the competencies that I have either from this position or from prior experience that is allowing me to achieve more in this current position. And then look at that next level and see what the roles, what does that task list look like, and compare. Like, look, hey, I'm actually doing the stuff that's already on the next level. So you have one or two options. One, you can give me more money, or two, you can just promote me to that position. So, I think just making sure that one, be willing to work with them, like, hey, look, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just know my worth. And then two, like Brittney said, like, just ask for it. And I mean, the worst that can happen is they say no. And then when they say no, you have backup to prove why you believe or feel you should get that next thing. And if they're gun ho with no, challenge them on what you need to be doing to get that increase.
Yes. Take a step further.
Love it. Al, anything like that?
No, I work in education, man. If you're lucky enough to be at a school that has incremental raises, you get that. But in most situations, if you want to make more money, you got a job search.
Right.
And unfortunately, in our world, you get lucky if you're able to be promoted in-house. A lot of times, you want another job, you got to find a new school. So, I would just say, this is where mentorship comes in, right? Finding somebody at this school who can walk you through what it means to try to make more money at this school. Because making more money at my last institution looks a lot different than trying to get a raise where I am now.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you for those insights. I think that's super important as far as what is our worth, and I guess a bit of hard advice. I think know the range as well. So especially when you're looking for more money, and the information's out there, Glassdoor. It's out there for your company, so you can see what the range is.
Actually, I was going to say, Shell, actually what people don't know, and I actually just found this out probably within the past 5 years, is that you can ask HR at your company in your position, and they have to tell you that information. So again, just ask, go to HR and say, hey, I just want to know and understand the range for my position. And they will tell you what it is, and also let you know where you are within the range if you don't do the math yourself. So
there you go. There you go. Perfect. We have a question in the chat. What about asking for more money during COVID? Anybody have any insight into that specifically? That COVID is a big caveat.
So, okay.
To it with the same mindset.
Brittney, go ahead first, and then
even though it's COVID, go into it with the same mindset.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna,
Yeah, that was precisely what you said it a lot nicer than what I was thinking of it. Honestly, I was kind of thinking of it from the perspective that it is their problem, not yours, in the sense that, when you think about COVID, right, like the company had to come up with how they're going to pivot, how they're going to, get back to their bottom line numbers. And so as part of that, your job role has changed. As part of that, the company and how they do work has changed. And so now you're probably actually doing more work than you were doing before that requires you to have a promotion. Now, granted, there are people who are being laid off and losing their job, and there's this mentality that like, I have to just be thankful that I have a job, right? Like, so thank you for not firing me. And that's a really real, thought process to have. But again, it goes back to knowing your worth and being honest with what value you're bringing to the team. And if you are impacting bottom line results, then make sure that you're getting bottom line pay.
Right. Mm-hmm. Love it. That's it. So Brianna Rimmer's echoing what you just said, knowing your worth. And I say this, knowing what makes you worth less, not worthless, but knowing what makes you worth less. So you have to be real with yourself. Like, say, I am not here yet. This person, they may be making more than me, but they may for this reason,
right?
Maybe for that reason, or for this reason, I'm not there yet. But I'm going to ask anyway. But say knowing your worth, and also knowing what makes you worth less. And that's just a conversation that you have to have with yourself and have to just be real with yourself. And that's not just in professional scenarios, but that's just in life. Knowing what makes you worth less, so you can, like Al Jones said, knowing what those gaps are. It's just a different way of saying knowing what your gaps are and being able to fill those gaps. So great. I have another question. It's a kind of a pivot. Do employees really look at their social media before they hire you? Brittney, I'm gonna ask you this. Do they really look at your social media?
Oh, definitely. I look at social media. If I have someone interviewing for my team, I'm definitely looking them up. I want to see who you are before you sit down in front of me in a suit and tell me what you think I want to hear, So it definitely happens for sure.
Al, I see.
Someone that was not offered a job because of something that they had on their social media. So
good.
It happens.
Al, I see you smiling. Are you checking out people's social media pages?
I have no comment on what I do. What I will say is, be mindful. I know people in situations who have walked themselves out of situations based off what they posted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love it. Ish, how about you? Any insight?
Same. It's the same. I mean, just know, again, it's about, it's almost like the trick, right? Of trying to make sure that you are who you say you are. And so, again, don't be concerned about what your social media page is or look like, but understand that for the jobs and the roles that you're wanting and that you're trying to apply to, make sure that you have a consistent brand and character across social media and resume. And that doesn't mean that you have to be formal on Facebook. But what it does mean is that, from a character perspective, like, are you causing havoc on Facebook? And if you are, then why would I think you would act differently in the office? And so that may make me not consider you. So yeah, definitely just be mindful and just consistency.
Love it. Great. So going to the poll really quick, we have a new question in the poll. Has COVID-19 made it harder to find professional development? Has COVID-19 made it harder to find professional development? So not the job per se, but the developmental opportunities. And I actually didn't get the answer to the last poll. So Miss Moderator, if you could just throw what you thought the answer was to are you in the current field? I think that was the question. Whatever the last question, can you throw the answer in there, please? I missed that one, my fault. So I'm just going to ask this this is a good question. Has COVID-19, in this COVID-19 environment, where are some places and spaces and avenues that we can find for professional development? How do we develop professionally when we're not necessarily going into the office and surrounded by our peers?
Conversations like this, you're in the circle. Webinars, Zoom, LinkedIn, they're all over.
I was going to say you're in a circle, but I'm biased, so I'm not just going to be like, you're in a circle. I'm just click the link. How about you?
No.
Right. I'm going to go with you're in a circle. That's the answer. No, that is the answer. But I think, it goes back to recreating experiences as well, right? Like, the the platform has changed, right? Where you being in the office versus being online, that's different. But the things that you still need to do is the same, right? Like you still need to build relationships. You still need to reach out and get mentors and sponsors and all of that. All of that stuff is still relevant. So I guess just speaking in that perspective, it's really important that if your company or your organization isn't doing it for you, take initiative. Like this is perfect time for you to, suggest, hey, let's do, elevator Zooms where, you just have a executive, open a Zoom call with no agenda and allow for people to stop by and, say hi, like get creative of what that could look like. And then just, again, professional development is about building your skill set and your competencies. So, I don't know what that should look like, but there's trainings, there's certifications, there's all these things that you can do to grow from a learning and development perspective that you should explore. What is it that you felt like you haven't had time to do, and now that you're no longer doing 30 minutes to and from the office, you have a now free hour to then study and to learn a new craft. So, really just make sure that you maximize your time and that you're being productive and that you're not getting caught up or sucked into, the COVID woe of like, man, I can't go outside, or, oh man, I can't be around people. Okay, well, what can you do instead? What can you do differently now in this new environment?
Can I jump in? Because both of them said that's so perfect. For me, I see he's here in the chat. Shout out to Caleb Boswell. Engaging with him and watching the stuff he's doing actually got me seeing a therapist. And my biggest thing right now in life is that my pace is so fast. Like for people who know me, like I'm an intense person sometimes because this is like how I am, right? Go, go, go. What's next? How do we get bigger? How do we get better? How do we move to the next level? And right now, it's not the thing for me to do. So although I'm a part of a couple of different professional development, because higher ed, right? There's all these different organizations for this and for that. So right now, I'm actually in the middle of a 3-week conference thing that's virtual. But right now, it's okay to just kind of slow down, right? Like for our jobs, because we're still working in person, we're on screens all day. With the professional development is also on the screen post 5 p.m. So it really is okay if just for right now, if you want to take a break and step back, chill, take care of yourself. Maybe this isn't the moment for you to get to the next level and keep going above and beyond. So that's just what's on my heart and I'm living. So I figured I'd toss that out.
All right. It's a couple things. Oh, go ahead, Brittney. I see. I don't want to cut you off.
I was going to say, I appreciate you for saying that because that was my life pre-COVID,
Right.
Just on the go all day, all the time. So this was a nice reset for me to actually be home, be present, spend more time with my kid.
Right.
Yeah, and I was going to echo that. Like, I appreciate you saying that because sometimes when we think about professional development, we do think that it's the continuous go, when really you do need to just stop and take a moment to reset. So I think it goes back to, again, the decision. You have to understand what's best for you to develop professionally. Is it for you to slow down because you've been too anxious and working 100+ hour work weeks? And you really need to just chill out and take a break? Or is it, you do need to go, and find training and competencies and networking? So you decide.
Yeah, love it, love it. So a couple things I want to do. Shout out to Caleb Boswell and the Healing Collective. Caleb, if you want to plug some of your information into the chat and where we can find you in the Healing Collective, because I know you've inspired, like Al said, you inspired him, you inspired me to go look for a therapist as well. And not for anything in particular, but I was like, there's a lot going on. So there must be a lot going on. So for that in itself, and Caleb is actually a Your Inner Circle alumnus as well. He was on the Best Day Ever where he talked about that exact topic in the midst of quarantine and COVID. So Caleb, if you're still in the chat, I would love for you to plug your information and where we can find you because it's super important. Sometimes development is not sometimes. A part of development is rest. A part of development is actually you have to, because very, very basic example, we're in the gym and you're working out, you do that. That's I guess a minutia, a small amount of the time. The actual development happens over the next day when you're sore. You're actually not doing anything. The catalyst is only for a few minutes, but that rest is so important. So part of development is actually resting. But now we're going to move forward because we have 15 minutes left. So we're going to keep pushing, and we have a few more questions. So go ahead and if you have any more questions, conversations, throw that in the chat. I'm just ecstatic that there's over 70 people in this room looking at this conversation. That warms my heart. That really, really warms my heart. So I'm just going to go with this because I think it's important. Can I be an entrepreneur and have a full-time job? Is this possible? Because I think this ties into rest and where do we find that balance? Is anybody in here side hustling or full-time hustling or two full-time hustlers? Each, I see a nodding.
Yeah, I'm a full-time hustler, I guess. So right now I currently have a full-time corporate gig as a finance manager, like a market finance manager. And then I also have my business, which is, like I told you guys earlier, resolution coaching. And one of the things that allows for me to do both is not to stop compartmentalizing my life. So I have to think of it as one calendar, not two calendars, not three calendars. Like, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I have a full-time job, I'm a business owner. And then just recently I added to a board. So now I'm a director on a board. And so there's a whole lot of happening, and there's some things that don't get done. I'm going to be honest and say that, right? Because you have to choose. But what keeps me on track is this idea of having one calendar and making sure that it integrates with my husband's, that it integrates with my work, it integrates with my business. And I think and to be honest, right, a lot of prayer and devotional time as well to keep the strength and the energy to keep on going, and understanding that when you have a purpose and a reason to do something, then you get it done. So I would say, yes, it's definitely possible. And the more you simplify your life by trying to get out of the work-life balance mentality, then you kind of get freed, because there's no such thing as work-life balance. There's one life. Like, that's it. You got one, and it consists of both, but there's no balancing it. So if you get caught up into this idea of balancing the two or the three or the four or all these things in your life, then you're never going to have time. But when you sit and think about how you're going to spend your day, and maybe the first hour is, business, the second hour is, the next 8 hours is work, and then what are you going to do after work? Is it family time? What does that look like? So just stop compartmentalizing your life, I would say, is my advice.
Love it. Brittney, I saw the hair going back and forth. Anything like that? I got
very animated. I was just great. I call it flight time. It's basically, I set time aside in my day to do things. Now, granted, I'm not an entrepreneur, but my job is sales. So there is some aspects in my position where I have to, think like a business owner and, move about my day that way, but then also integrating the other things that I do outside of work, which, I teach dance. I'm very active in my sorority, with our mentorship group. So, just those things. Managing my day, but then I lost my train of thought. Forgot what I was going to say. Come back to me. Here it is. So with working and also owning your own business, make sure that whatever you're doing, it does not interfere with your corporate world.
Yep.
As far as like no non-competes.
Mm-hmm.
Also make sure that you understand your company's IP agreement, intellectual property agreement, meaning whatever you think of, you do while you're working there, it belongs to them once you leave. So just be mindful of that.
Thank you for that. That's super important, because I've been on a few of these panels. I don't think anybody's ever mentioned that standpoint. Mm-hmm. So thank you for mentioning that. Super.
I negotiate those a lot with, when it comes to engineers and their patents, when it comes to, before they sign on to a new job. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah. Love it. Al, would you like to add anything to this? Good. Any questions in the chat? Looks like we're good in the chat. Just some other things for professional development, the basics, reading a book and podcast, and also the new app, Clubhouse, social media just in general. But I don't know if anybody's been on Clubhouse lately. But it's almost like it's a lot of good on there, some other stuff. But there's mostly good on there. But I've picked up just gems on there. But definitely podcasts, reading a book, going back to the traditional forms of professional development. All right, we got about 10 minutes left. So which question do we want to go to? I'm thinking, let's just go with that. What's made you successful? What's made you successful in your career? So I'm gonna start with you, Al. What's made you successful?
I need to think on that one. What made me successful? Mm-hmm. Walking through open doors, trying things that I never thought I would try, engaging with people and trying to, so many different things. I would say if you told me to pick one thing that made me successful, is trying to put out the energy and love that I want to receive. So when I interact with somebody, I believe, I don't remember who said it, Kneisha or Brittney was talking about being genuine. And when you're networking, actually trying to see how I can help or serve somebody else. And just putting that energy out and then just letting it come back to you, We all know working hard matters. We all know doing the things you say you're going to do and getting them done matters a lot. But I think just putting out good energy, man, trying to be the best version of myself.
Love it, love it, love it. Ish, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, so the one thing that came to my mind when I was talking was just the Zig Ziglar quote that I love, which is, if you help enough other people get what they want, then you will get what you want. And that's just super true. Like you just need to be helpful. And again, not focused on getting, but what can you give? And so when you come from that place, then yeah, people are going to, it's going to bring favor on you, and people are going to want to help you in return. So that's one thing. It's just not being self-centered has helped me be successful. But I would say, really, if I boiled it down to one thing, it would be faith. When I was graduating from undergrad, I had a whole series of debacles that happened. And one in particular made me feel like, oh man, I listened to a sermon, and it basically said the phrase was, when it's impossible to man praise God, you've now entered the realm of miracle. And that kind of stuck with me. It became like a foundational scripture. So then whenever I would go into the corporate world and someone told me that that the job was impossible for me to get, I actually would get all hype and excited, be like, oh, yay, that's what I needed. That's what I needed, because now that means God's going to do a miracle because you said it was impossible. And so because that was like what I built my faith on, that every time an impossible role came up, I got excited. Like it was like motivation and encouragement for me to stay with it, because it was like, no, this gives God glory. This gives him a platform and an opportunity to work a miracle, and that'll inspire other people. And so, that fueled me. And I mean, a lot of people on here know me and don't know me, but where that ended up getting me is to working and living internationally. So I lived in Paris and worked there for 8 months. And, no one would think that would happen for someone, an inner city Detroit girl, right? Like that doesn't normally happen. And so I would just say that, yeah, all the glory goes to God, and that faith is really what's been fueling my career.
Love it. I too would like to work and live in Paris, Ish. So how do I do that? But before we do that, I'm actually going to come back.
You got 5 minutes, Shell. You got 5 minutes.
Brittney, how about you? What is
my heart is so full right now, because I love having these conversations with like-minded people. And it's so funny that you, Al, and Ish said that, because my tagline on my LinkedIn profile is, I'm here to make good things happen for somebody else. I do that and it all works. And so, I mean, that's pretty much the bulk of what's made me successful in my career, whether it's placing people, developing my recruiters, to, like you said, you make your manager look good, so they make me look good when they find the candidates that we're looking for, and just doing it scared. Opportunities like this, like when Shell called me and asked me to be on this, I'm like, what? You want me to talk? What am I going to say to people? But, so just putting myself out there, stepping out of my comfort zone.
Love it. So if anybody knows me as maybe starting in college, but definitely before college, this would have been totally out of my comfort zone. Extremely shy, extremely introverted. It was not my thing. Speaking to people was not my thing, but just putting myself in, and I think this is my answer as far as what the success looked like, putting myself in positions that made me extremely uncomfortable and being intentional about it. And somebody said it, doing it afraid, doing it nervous, but my mother told me not doing it is not an option. Your fears will be forgiven and your obedience will be rewarded. And that's paid off in the past 10 years or so, that I've been very much so intentionally focusing on my professional development. And from another question, another point that was talked about earlier, your development is your responsibility and your responsibility alone. So people are going to be in your corner, but if you think they're going to be in your corner, so I'm not going to rule that out, but at some point they just won't be able to be there for you, or they can't be there for you, or they're not supposed to be there for you. Some things that you just have to do on your own. So always take that. Your development is your own responsibility. We got 5 minutes left. And I too would like to live in Paris. So how do I land a job outside of the country once COVID ends, or at least outside of my state?
Well, I guess you just got to understand the opportunities, right? And then understand what it requires and takes to get there. Again, you got to be bold, right? And have a level of confidence. Again, not cockiness, but confidence in how you approach things. And when you do things with a pure heart and understanding how that opportunity will serve you, then I would say, just ask for it. And the way I'll give this example just so that it can make it tangible, but I also, in undergrad, I also studied abroad at the University of Cambridge, which is in the UK. And at that time, I was told I was unqualified. Like I had to be a junior, and it was just a whole lot of logistics to why they said that I wasn't available to go. And one of the things that I did was, it was just so in my heart that I had to go that I'm like, no, I can't accept no as the answer. And so I ended up setting up a conversation with the dean who was taking the students to Cambridge. And so I had a conversation with him to let him know, one, why it was important, why I wanted this position, or, in this case, go to the study abroad, and what I was going to do as a result of having been. And I followed through. So he, took a chance and let me go. And then afterwards, I followed up with what I said that I was going to do or say. So I would say, when you're thinking about moving to another city or another country and working there, make sure that even if someone tells you no, or say that this opportunity isn't for you, be willing to have those conversations to tell them why you feel like it's important and why you feel like you deserve it and what you're going to do once you have that experience. And I think that once people start to understand who you are as a person and see your intentions, then they're going to give you a shot. So yeah, it applies to school and it applies to work. So
love it. Al, I visited you on multiple occasions in different states. I've driven out to, is it Lawrence, Kansas, or Lawrenceville?
Kansas.
I've made a drive out to Lawrence twice. I've driven out to Lawrence, Kansas twice. Al, how do I get from Michigan to Wisconsin to Kansas back to Michigan and to wherever you're going next?
Well, that's what I was saying. So the tough part about the field I work in is a lot of times you want to move up, you got to move out. So just being aware, knowing what you want to do next, knowing what your end goal is. I saw it was a comment or a question about how do you know when it's time? It's taking a look at what you're doing, thinking about what you want to do next. And if those things aren't lining up anymore, then maybe it's time, right? The biggest thing I tell people when looking for a new job, does your values match the values of the school or the organization? And if it doesn't, then maybe that's not the place for you to be, right? So for me, I was not geographically bound, so I've been able to have these great opportunities, these random, small, tiny cities. Whitewater, Wisconsin is 12,000, and it felt like 12,000. The cool part is I now know what's too small, and I have not returned to what's too small, but the opportunity presented itself, and kind of shot my shot, man.
Yeah, love it. I think similar story for me. After college, I moved to Phoenix. I stayed with a family member, and I was blessed to have family. She's let me stay rent free until I started making a little bit of money. And I just started applying for jobs out there. So I couldn't, it was at the end of the recession. I couldn't find a job per se. So thank God I got in a company who, in order to promote, you had to go to a different building. Typically, you don't promote in a building. We have 300 locations, and it's very difficult to promote in one of those buildings. So to promote, you have to go. So I promoted from Phoenix to Denver, promoted from Denver to Michigan. I was in Michigan for a few years, and I just took a position down here in Atlanta. And it's just, for me, it was looking for opportunities, and the moving bonus helps as well. So if you're in the right organization, or if you're switching organizations, see if they help pay for supplement some of that move. It's definitely there. Brittney's shaking her head. Yeah. Is that something that you've seen in some of your candidates?
Oh, for sure. I ask when I'm qualifying a position if they offer relocation assistance.
Yep, definitely. I've got it a couple of times. It's definitely been a blessing. So this is gonna be my last question. It's 8:15. So this is my last question for real. And I think it's kind of what we've just been talking about, but I've been at my job for a while and I'm thinking about switching careers, but I'm comfortable where I am. And I don't want to upset the apple cart. Should I go? So I'm not growing and I feel comfortable, which actually kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. That's why I'm asking the question in the first place. What should I do? What should I do? And this is the last question. I'll go with Kneisha. How about you?
So tell me the first part of the question again. Sorry.
So I've been at my job for a while and I'm thinking about switching my career, but I'm comfortable, but I'm kind of uncomfortable at the same time. I'm feeling like there is more, but you know, I'm making decent money. Mm-hmm. Things are going well. Should I go for a different career?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I'll speak from a little bit of an aspiration, and that is with no challenge comes no change. And so if you're trying to change, then you should look for the challenge. But if you want to stick in that comfort, if you want to sit in that complacency, and we kind of talked about it earlier, that sometimes that may be what you need, you know, because other areas of your life is expanding, or other areas of your life is, taking a different route that requires you to slow down or to be comfortable in your career. But if that's not the case and you're looking for growth and you're looking for development, then I would say, yes, it is time to be challenged, because whenever you get complacent and whenever you get idle, then you're not going to change. You're not going to grow in that. So look at your personal and professional goals and see if a challenge is necessary, or if you have room for a challenge. And if you do, then always take the challenge.
Love it. Al or Brittney, would you like to add?
With no challenge comes no change.
That was it. I was
taking that with me.
I love quotes. I wish I would have thought of that one, boy. That's a good one.
So I have nothing to add to that, because that was a phenomenal answer. What I do want to say is, in my field, because it's a helping people for a field, a lot of the times what I run into, especially when I'm talking to entry-level professionals, is they feel bad about leaving. They feel like they're going to leave the organization in a bad spot. They feel like the students they serve won't get the same level of help, especially when we talk about marginalized people, right? Specifically Black people on college campuses. We are a lot of times one of few, so a lot of the Black students come to us. So it's the thought of, well, if I leave, what will happen to those students? And it's a tough situation and a tough question to ask, but I try to remind people, they'll be all right without you. The school was here before you, and the school will be here after you, and they will continue running. Students will continue coming through. So don't allow the circumstance itself to be the thing that holds you back.
Love it. And just speaking from this perspective, being Black, sometimes I'm a first generation American, and I think all of us have similar interlining stories. Sometimes when you get something, you feel like, man, nobody has had this before, and I feel kind of bad for like trying to go for more, and maybe I should just chill where I'm at. But no, I think I need it all. So I agree with what you said, Ish. With no challenge comes no change. And when you said change, I thought of change and money. Right. So that's it. That's all I got. So this is my last. This isn't even a question, but any parting thoughts that you have for the audience, any just parting thoughts in general, anything that we didn't discuss, and this will be it. Pub yourself. What do you have going on in your life? Where can we find you on social media, or if you want to be found? So I'll just start with Al. How about you? What you got going on?
Working, man. I have a new son. He will be 10 months, the 19th. I love him a lot. It has changed my life completely. It's funny that you asked me to be on the panel right now because my mind is all over the place because of my son. I'm now rethinking how I operate in my career. I've always put my job first, which is how I've been able to excel so fast, but I don't want to anymore. I'm starting to reprioritize. I'm starting to realize what's important to me. The pandemic, as I said before, made me slow down. So therapy is helping with that to try to figure out what do I want to take away from life besides a paycheck, because that's how I've been living. I don't even know what you asked. I just want
to say congratulations.
I was feeling that. So what else is going on? What was the thing? Parting advice. The last thing that I will say is don't be afraid to ask questions, and sometimes just try something different. Right? Like, most, what do they say, the path least traveled, right? So get out there, ask questions, and try. Yeah, love it. A person who asks a question is a fool for a moment. A person who does not ask a question is a fool for a lifetime. Ask questions. Kneisha, how about you? What you got going? Where can we find you?
Yeah,
what do we need to know?
Yeah, so I guess, Al, I feel you because I'm a new mom. So I have an 11-month-old. And she does, little ones make you reconsider and rethink a lot of what you want to do. But I guess what I've been working on is, this is my kind of field of professional development and leadership development. And so I just recently became a published author. And so I have a book. Yeah. So first time book author. Yeah. Yeah, that's the book, The Fruit of a Spirit-Led Leader. And so I wrote that book, and it really highlights my career journey, but then also connects scripture to, kind of just what that looks like as you go through. So you guys check me out with that. And then I saw someone said email addresses. So I'll throw mine out there. Feel free to reach out, but it's ksanders@rcgrowth.com. So I feel like I'm a mentor. You said I was a mentor to someone, Shell, right? So
yeah, somebody
make sure they have the email so that they can reach out if they have questions. And parting words I would say is stay curious. So we talked about, always ask questions, but I would say also stay curious, be willing to explore, and then always think about, like, what could I be doing differently if my reality isn't matching, the promise or the thing that I hope for or want. So just stay curious and explore.
Perfect. Brittney, last but not least.
All right.
What you got?
Going on, my world is getting ready to slow down. Automotive industry shuts down the last 2 weeks of the year, so it's my least busiest time of the year. So just kind of putting placements in the most that we can right now before that happens. I'm an old mom. My son will be 10 next month, so I'm past it. But new challenges nonetheless. So any parting thoughts for, I would say, I don't know, just like I said, do it scared. Don't be afraid. Ask questions. Put yourself out there. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. The worst thing they can say is no. So, just go for it.
Love it. Awesome. And that is it. So I just want to say thank you to all of my...
Hey, can I throw in, since I didn't...
Go ahead.
A CMU legend wrote a book. I just want to plug that. Natalie Williams had a book that just dropped. Everybody should take a read. I loved it. Everyone will love it. Since I don't have nothing to promote, I'll promote that.
Love it. Yep. That is dope for real. So hold that book up again. I need to get a screenshot.
Lessons in leadership.
Okay.
Nat Williams.
Okay.
Perfect. I just need that screenshot for myself. Thank you. Can I go now? This is my turn.
Yeah. It's your show, Shell. You can do what you want.
No, it's not. It's the circle, and I just want to, like I said, create this space for these types of conversations. I didn't know 70 people were going to be on here tonight. That warms my heart, and I hope this grows. And whatever this looks like. And just to have these types of conversations, to share this information with the people who need it most, the people who we really, really care about the most. I don't know what else to say, but thank you. Thank you for attending. And for the rest of this season, especially going into 2021, I think we're going to stay in this professional development, leadership development, spiritual development, personal development. We're staying in this development range for the rest. I know the last season was kind of broad. We had entrepreneurship, which is good, and buying a home and writing a book, but we're going to stay in this developmental circle because I think it's so, so important to what we do. So don't be surprised if I ask my panelists for a round 2 in some capacity. It won't be next time, but I would love to have you back on, and maybe we could do a deeper dive somewhere. But once again, thank you for all of my guests, not all of my guests. Thank you for all of the guests who attended, all 70 plus of you, all 75 of you who registered. I think more showed up. That's simply amazing to me. I think the first one we did with these, we had like 20, 30 people. And to see the growth is a testament that I think this is working. I think that this is needed. So this is the circle. I don't have anything. I do have a lot of stuff to plug. So you're in the circle first and foremost. Follow that on IG, handing out L's. So we have merch. We have hoodies. I like quotes. What else we got? I wrote you this note. So that's something new, but those are all my quotes that I really wish I would have had the challenge quote. I'm going to steal that, but I really like that quote, Ish. And then also, the shirt. The shirt is from Black Business Junkie. Black Business Junkie. So this is not mine, but this is from Black Business Junkie. So go ahead and check that page out. And I think I see it in the chat, Black Business Junkie. Definitely doing some dope stuff there. And they highlight things that are going on with Black entrepreneurs and Black business. So that's it. That's all I got. Thank you all for attending. We're going to do this again next month and be on the lookout. Anything else for my panelists, guests?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. This is super, super dope. Until next time, welcome to the circle. We're going to do it again real soon. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.